Good evening and welcome to Geo Whiskey. Tonight we are once more onto the breach, this time with the Highland Park Cask Strength Single Malt Scotch Whiskey, release number 3. Highland Park is a distillery on Orkney in the northern reaches of Scotland, and the much ballyhooed northern reaches that were once quite Norse, and they make a big show of that with the current, as of 15 or so years ago, the current advertising and marketing spin on Highland Park, which, as you'll see, has a lot of kind of this Norse runic sort of feeling to it. They have releases that are like Viking and Ragnar and all this stuff, which is a bit overdoing it, though. Obviously, it's certainly true that the Norse history and heritage is very real in that part of Scotland, and indeed, I count some of those chiefs and kings, etc., among some of my ancestors, but they can maybe dial it down a bit because it feels like a little too much, like sort of it doesn't have a lot to do with the whiskey. But anyway, another reason that I tend to avoid Highland Park, despite the fact that when I first started drinking whiskey, I drank a lot of it, but it's quite inauthentic. And if you watch this channel, then you know that authenticity is one of the things that I place a lot of pride in. They water down their whiskey. They put color in it. They chill filter it. The reason I picked up this bottle for about $99 is that it is free of all of those adulterations, which is quite rare for an own bottling from Highland Park. And it also had good reviews, and so I couldn't resist it. 64.1 ABV, which is quite high. Of course, with Scotch, you put it into the cask, and it goes down in ABV, right? The Angel's share. So this is quite young, if it's that high, but not super young. And of course, it's not a single cask, right? It's a cask strength, which means it's a mixture of various casks, a tableau of different different ones that they've selected, but none of them, the end product vatted together and not watered down. And to offset the overall youth of it, they say there's more peat in these selections, as well as more sherry influence, which is a smart way to go about it, to bring a little bit more of that flavor forward, even though it's a younger whiskey. Of course, as you can tell, the bottle is not full, so I have enjoyed it before, but never really sat down and focused entirely on tasting notes. Oh, the thing about this, and I said it in one of my earlier videos where I was just kind of drinking it while doing something else. If you put this in front of me, and I'm no true connoisseur or professional judge of whiskey or anything, but if you put this in front of me, I would think it was like a Campbellton or something. It has a lot of like a Springbank sort of feel to it, and there's just like that kind of wisp of smoke and a little bit of like berries and really earthy and kind of diesel sort of feel to it. I mean, it's great, and I can only assume that's what they were going for. And I look at the color, right? And that's all natural. Yeah, the peatiness is, it's quite I mean, it's earthy, right? It's very much of soil and the foliage and everything. It's not like overloading with peat. It's just kind of that wisp of smoke that really complements a little bit of the sweeter elements. Tiny bit of floral in there. Some sort of like cake batter with like strawberry frosting. Slush. Oh. Yeah, continuing more on the cake theme. I mean, kind of a frosting, sort of fruity, and then rather spicy. A tiny bit of smoke. On the finish, sort of a chewy jam, tiny bit herbal, and that background of smoke and like petrichor. I'm going to put a link in the description that is an expedition by one of the German chaps from whisky.com to the Highland Park distillery. That just kind of shows what it looks like, some of their processes. For the peated malt, I think they do their own malting for that, and then anything that's unpeated they bring in from the mainland in the big malters. But anyway, I don't know how whiskey.com has like cornered the market on these really in-depth, long-form, high-quality distillery tours, but they do a great job of it, and I find them very educational, and it allows you to kind of peer behind the scenes. So I'll put that link in the description. Check it out. At the kind of the back of the finish, it's just not even quite smoke. I mean, it's just like a roasted malt feeling. Getting a lot more of the smoke as I go back, with some caramel, almost like a creme brulee, but a bit like over burnt, over bruleed. Kind of a saltiness to it, in that there's some fruit that wants to peek up. Some fruit and like frosting, or like just like very sweet, kind of sugary. This is really good. I mean, this is really good. I could dilute this. Some purists would say that I should dilute it, but generally my philosophy is if I'm getting everything that I want from the whiskey, then I'm not going to dilute it. If it's less spectacular than I expected, excellent malt. There may be some release number 2 floating around still out there, and a release number 4 presumably, hopefully coming, but definitely release number 3 if you can get your hands on. I highly recommend it. For Highland Park to have something has this amount of bona fides as far as authenticity is concerned, and I know in a lot of places it's might be a bit more available than a Campbellton. I think it's a good alternative for that. All right, well, thank you for watching. Cheers, and